Hey, welcome, and thanks for joining us for a live broadcast. Uh, Today, you get something special, me and Tony. So we're going to be doing our monthly book review now. So we're really excited about this. Me and Tony read a lot, trying to encourage everyone to read more, right? And Tony is actually part of a book review club, right, or a book club.
In an actual book, you and I do more audio, but yeah, it's an actual hard. Well, that's what most people do in the book club.
I mean, we have so much time when we're driving places or working out or what, so you can fill those gaps. And, hopefully learn some new things, right? Maybe open up your mind a little bit and not necessarily just read things that you already agree with or what so, but you can read some different things and expand your horizons, and we could all grow some, and maybe we wouldn't be so mad at each other
All the time. So
all the time. So today we're going to review Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari, which is a great book and the sequel to *Sapiens*. But just so you know, what's coming up and around the corner, next month we're going to be doing *Thinking in Bets*. The month after that, in November, we're going to be doing *Everybody Lies*. And then in December, we're going to do *Factfulness*. And then January, *Never Split the Difference*. So we've got those all the way booked out. You can check them out on our YouTube page. We actually have like a recommended reading list, and I think we're going to update that webpage to kind of compilate with what we're doing here, so that we have our past book reviews onto there, plus the future ones that are coming up. So check that out as well too. And then in February, we for this week are going to be taking suggestions on a biography. So put up your favorite person or favorite biography that you've read, and then we'll take the top 3 or 4 ideas, and we'll do a poll on Facebook next week, and we'll pick a winner, and that'll be February. So that's something a little bit different. I'll mention that again at the end, just to remind you to just go ahead and put it in the comments below here. We'll probably try to put a comment section on that webpage as well too. You could do that. Send us an email, etc. So, Tony, I'll let you start off. Let's dig into Homo Deus.
yeah, well, thanks for joining us. This is actually our first book club, but last broadcast here in the office, and it took me all this time to finally innovate and get a cushion, so now I'm as tall as Phil as well. So basically, what this is taking us in the history from where we are, and if you read *Sapien*, that gave you a background on the whole history of human beings in a short 400-page book or whatever it is.
Sure.
And then going forward, what we're going to look like as a civilization. So it really is about automation and technology and what that is doing for us today and where it's going to take us as human beings and civilization going forward. So, and it's going to go in a lot of different paths, right? I mean, we barely know where we're going to be next week with technology, much less 50, 100 years from now. So that's about a little summation, but it really comes down to humans have risen on this planet, and now we dominate it, and so where is that going to go and be going forward? So the book starts off really, what people don't realize, I think, today is how much technology is part of our life, and more so here in America and industrializations down other places. But it really is just creeping into our lives, and eventually it's just going to take over our lives, is what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, I think I read a review that I felt was kind of unfair to Mr. Harari, that said, it's interesting, but especially the *Sapiens* book, but no new ideas here. And I think, out of billions of people and tens of thousands of years, um, it's probably starting to get tougher to have genuinely, totally original ideas, right? But like our entire species, from when we were evolving and coming through the ice age to now, is about storytelling, right? And it's like, how do you take those ideas and weave a paradigm out of it? And I think it's very interesting, how he starts out the book to talk about human history has mainly been about plague and famine and war, and not dying from those things and trying to have them not happen. And for the first time in history, we're pretty much there. We're not worried about that. And the things that are our biggest danger right now, um, sometimes are our success, like the opulence, right? So, like my favorite quote in there from that part of the book was Coca-Cola is a far worse threat to most human beings on this planet than Al Qaeda or any other nation or something like that. And it's absolutely true. I mean, more people like kill themselves pretty much than any other way of dying. So, I mean,
Slowly,
it's
right?
yeah,
Slowly and over time.
yeah. So, what is this new paradigm, going to bring for us? And maybe he's not right. But you start to think about things from, what do we turn our mighty powers and attention to now that we have defeated like the things that preoccupied humankind for so long?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and he's a history teacher too, so he's giving an account of the history and where he thinks it's going, not looking for ideas. So, as we were joking, I was joking that it's kind of funny had he had a happy ending, he may have had some better reviews, but he's just trying to predict where it's going and not looking for solutions. We starting today though, I think people don't grasp. I mean, I think we do when we stop and think about how much technology is already taking over our lives. You're on Facebook, obviously, they know your history. And the book would argue they know you better than you do. And we see, there's examples of that in the book, for instance. When you call this one company that has customer service, you're talking to artificial intelligence, and they can distinguish what type of person you are and what worker would be best suited for you to bring this to a conclusion. Those are a couple quick examples. Of course, in our cars, Google Maps. I don't even, I'm too reliant on Google Maps, right? We're becoming more and more reliant, and this is just the tip of the iceberg for probably where we're going to go. And he defines three things. Right now we're kind of having, biomedical or genetic altering, with medications and things like that. And then the second part of that would be somewhere down the road, and still it's already started, where we become less organic as human beings, maybe with a fake knee or a fake hip, and eventually a fake eye or this or that.
Or even just a smartphone.
Or a smartphone, which is attached to, which is part of you, right? And then eventually becoming completely inorganic at some point, and possibly, as he would say, becoming a cyborg. But that to me is way down the road. I mean, we as humans are going to be reluctant, I think, to give some of these things up, but there's reasons that we're going to be pushed that way as well.
Mm-hmm. What Tony's talking about is he's kind of skipping to the end of the, where he gets to like how we evolved from, religion to humanism to dataism. That basically, free will is a myth. That the way that we think and feel about things are basically complicated algorithms that nature has figured out for us through evolution. And as we make these sophisticated computers that can actually now crunch that data, he calls it, unconscious, almost like super intelligence versus our conscious intelligence, that will be able to untangle that, figure things out, live happier lives because these machines or whatever we use to crunch that data and algorithms will be able to figure that out better than we could. And this wasn't actually in the book, but when Tony and I were preparing for this, we listened and watched different things, and there was an interview with him, talking about how, thinking about humanism and its, relative superiority, to past, religious beliefs and what so, is that, evolution sharpened, human beings to make these really fast decisions based on our feelings and stuff. And so it probably was good practice to listen to your feelings a lot of times to make decisions rather than a few esoteric people that made up religions or what so thousands of years ago. And this is not an attack in any way, shape, or form. I mean, a lot of spirituality is great, and we're not attacking that, but just in terms from a scientific perspective of making decisions. And again, it was probably one of the best things, but if we could untangle those algorithms and understand them and then place our science on top of that, well, that probably will be superior to our feelings. And so, one of the things is, the death of humanism eventually. And of course, what replaces that? It's wild speculation. I mean, even if you look back to, Ray Kurzweil and the singularity, at a certain point of super intelligence, does blossom from us or, computers or whatever the case, it's very unlikely that we can predict what its goals would be. Hopefully, our goals, right? It's not like something's going to usurp our place. It's just hopefully the next evolutionarily step, right? So
Yeah, and when you talk about free will, the free will is not from some government or something like that. In some cases, it is, of course, but it's from yourself, right?
sure.
You think you understand yourself, and really, you probably don't. And what's interesting, not to get into politics, but I think having an unconventional president has really changed the way people they go one way or the other. It's really because we've always had conventional Republican, Democrat. Maybe it got a little different, but having an unconventional president who kind of crosses over both ways, it really I think is plugged deeper into people's emotions, for instance. And it's something I don't think most people would have predicted 10 years ago that they would do this way. So the point of it is, though, is you probably don't know yourself as well as you think you do, and that's some of the lack of the free will. And that technology does know you, in many cases, you and your habits and what you do better than you think you do. And so those are going to be a lot of things that are driving us as individuals going forward.
I mean, another kind of quote. I don't know if I have the numbers exactly right. I'm just kind of pulling it off the top of my mind. That relates to that. It said, Facebook knows people better than most people, know. And it says, for just a regular friend, after just a few likes, Facebook probably knows them better than most of their friends know them. After like 50, then it knows you better than your best friend knows you.
Yeah.
And after 300, it knows you better than your spouse knows you in terms of if you were to get a bank of questions about someone. So just with that little amount of data,
Right. And you think you're
yeah.
just liking something, but you're feeding a bunch of information to Twitter and to Google and to all
Yeah.
these things, and they are defining who you are. And in some ways that's really helpful to us. In other ways, obviously it's intrusive, but at least we can control that to some degrees.
So we're gonna do some different reviews, and I think a lot of the books that we pick have a good purpose behind it, and we hope that if you do end up starting to follow us and maybe read some of these books with us, that you'll kind of open your mind. I think it's kind of sad sometimes. I read the reviews, especially on some book like this, that's really trying to challenge different paradigms and just get people to think. The negative reviews mainly that I read were kind of insubstantial in the fact that they weren't really reviewing the quality of the work and the ideas as much as you could tell it threatened their existing beliefs, and they were kind of lashing out from that perspective. And so, a lot of I think the divisiveness we have in society and what's so comes from that. Is people would rather confirm their existing beliefs rather than be open-minded that things could be different than what they believe. And you know what? It will probably lead you to a better life. I mean, if you do this research and are open-minded and you come out that that is actually the best, then so be it, right? But that, I don't think, is any kind of fulfilling journey right there. And definitely, I think we'll have a lot more conflict along the way, right? And so some of these books that we're going to do, especially the one coming up in December, that Factfulness, really challenges and speaks to a lot of the fact that people a lot of times believe in lots of things that don't have ground or traction in reality, and it's a real eye opener. So that's going to be a great one. The Everybody Lies. I mean, it really challenges you to look deep at yourself and the society that we live in. And so, these, you say, well, what's this have to do with financial? You guys are financial advisors or planners. But I think, to be good at what you do and to be a good human being, you have to continue to grow and be able to run a better business, be able to communicate effectively with all different types of people.
And understand people.
Yeah.
A lot of these are about the psychology.
At least as well as we can.
what makes people. That's right. So
we don't even understand ourselves.
Right. That's right. That's right. We'll have to go review this again. So even the book Everybody Lies, which is one of my favorites, it just means we all lie to ourselves, and so it's important for us to get a better understanding of what people really intend on doing. So.
And so, from an interview where we were listening to Yuval again outside of the book, again, it's challenging. He says, 100 years from now, this planet is going to be populated with beings that are far different than what we are today. It's very interesting and scary for some people to have something that's so different. But in a lot of ways, it may be vastly superior and an awesome future, where people have more and we don't have people starving to death or dying from diseases, and our goals may be very different. But on the flip side, I talked to a lot of people. I think I was listening to something that you were listening to in the background, and it was talking about a guy whose friends, are having a lot of issues with how much data that Facebook and Google collect, and it's difficult for them to see the huge benefits that are likely to come from that, as long as we protect privacy and what's so to a certain extent. And so we tend to think about the negatives a lot of times and be scared about it. I mean, look at all the dystopian books and movies. I mean, the machines conquering the world and taking over humans is probably the most loved of the sci-fi genres that there are, right?
But the teams that win bring humans and cyborgs together, usually, right? A specific example too was what's going to win? Health, because the more information we have about everybody, the better we're going to find solutions to health problems. But that means giving up some privacy. So at times, and so it's going to be like, what's going to win out? Your privacy or all of our cumulative health. And that's just one question, but that's somewhat along the lines of what this is going to answer. So.
Well, thanks for tuning in. Again, remember, put your suggestions out over the next week for biographies of people that you like or books that you read that are great. And then we'll take the top 4 of those, do a poll the week after this. Next week, we are going to take a break from the live broadcast because we're going to be moving offices. So this is the last time you're going to see us in this lovely conference room. We actually have a dedicated studio now at the new office. If you're ever interested, shoot us an email. Maybe you could come and see the whole process of how we do these in the future, from the 360 to the regular recording. And it's an experience in itself. Ask any of our guests that come. So thanks, Tony, for taking the time to read this with me. Yeah. Labor of love and intellect, right?
Yeah, and I guess we did talk about what the book talks about in those subjects, but it really is a good book, and it's well worth the read. And the Sapiens before this one as well. So I encourage you to read these and catch up on it, but read ahead to Thinking in Bets first, I guess. For next
Thinking in Bets is a very good book as well.
Yeah.
And totally from a surprising perspective. So thanks so much for joining us. Hope you guys have a great week, and we will see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.